All right, I'm very thankful to have you here today. And for those chiming in with us, we are having our guest here, Dr. Bernice Oname Dema. Am I saying that? Did I say that correctly?
Sure. Yeah. Thank
Thank you. Thank you. Our guest here today, we are very thankful to have because if you guys do not know, she is the first female president of Robo Progress Union America in New York, the African Diaspora Development Institute, New York City chapter chairperson. And we are very lucky today to have her for her presentation that she is going to give to us. Just in case, let me read this. So we are here to celebrate Africa Day, which will be May 25th, 2021, is a global annual commemoration of the foundation of the Organization of African Unity on the 25th of May, 1963. The Organization of African Unity was an intergovernmental organization established on May 25th, 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, with 32 signatory governments, where one of the main heads for the OAU's establishment was Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana and Haile Selassie, the emperor of Ethiopia at that time. We Charge Colonialism joins organizations around the world in celebrating Africa Day under the theme Women and Pan-Africanism, yesterday, today, tomorrow. So one of the questions that we did have
you.
was to be black, to be African, and to be a Pan-African. Are these all the same things to you?
Well, no, they're not the same thing, but they're all interconnected because, a lot of blacks do not identify as Africans. I'm sorry, and but they, however, claim to be of African descent. You
Right.
know, now you can be an African, but not black or Pan African. However, you must be African to be Pan African. You know,
Mm.
and the reason being that we cannot take the risk of someone who is not black um, saying, "Oh well, they're Pan Africanists" when they're not black. That's risky. As regrettable as it is, we have to be apologetic about it because it is what it is because you have to be an African to be a Pan Africanist.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
um, and so to your question, whether to be black or African or Pan Africanist, if they're the same thing, they're not the same thing. They're however connected, and like I just enumerated, they're just different because there's some people who you see are black and they tell you, yes, I'm of African descent, but I don't believe in African.
Right.
If I'm making sense, or if
Oh
you
no, you definitely are. You definitely are.
come across such people, but I've actually met people and I've had discussions, and that's the way they see it. And I choose not to fault them because that's them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I said, they're all interconnected, and so once we identify and we know who belongs to where, we can then choose to work with who we want to work with.
Mm-hmm. So I know for We Charge Colonialism, our key book is Black Power by Kwame Ture. And he has a section in there where he discusses about Black Power, where we have to close ranks to be able to know who exactly is on the same
Hey,
understanding and on the same page, correct? And so that we can progress in unison together and whatnot. So I like for you to go into detail because you said you must be African to be Pan-African. And I love that because I believe the same thing, but I like to know a little more detail on what you mean by that for the viewers.
well, if you're not a people, how do you know what they suffer? If you're not an African and know what exactly what we've been through, what we're going through, and what we're going to be facing, how do you know to fight the fight?
Mm-hmm.
know? So, correct me if I'm wrong. Pan Africanism is us Africans coming together, consciously coming together and actually working together to alleviate the problems that we've had as a people. as a so if you're not identifying as if you're not an African, that's what I mean. If you're not an African, you're not going to understand to be part of the what I call it struggle of the fight. You will be part of it.
Right.
That's why I said, it's regrettable that that's the case. One has to really one has to be unapologetic about it too.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be real. We have to face the fact that it is what it is.
So I like that you started it off by saying that they're all connected, because
Yeah,
many people don't realize that we all, like everybody says, we have the Black Power movement of the 60s where many people, and we have like, at least here in the States, where we started talking about quote unquote fight the power and fight the powers that be. We talk about the man and the system, but we're talking about colonialism, internal colonialism, neo-colonialism, imperialism, and many people that don't necessarily see our interconnectedness don't even know who we're fighting at
so
the
yeah,
end of the day.
and that's where the need to reformat ourselves, because the mental colonialism, that's worse than anything.
Yes.
If you're thinking something and you're not thinking the way every other person in the group fighting the fight are thinking, that's a problem. So we
Right.
all first have to be on the same page by mentally reorientating ourselves, making sure that we have we delivering the same message, and we're looking to achieve the same. Our goals are the same,
Right.
basically.
So I like to, with this being for significant for our women, I'd like to ask you: is there a feminine side or a feminine angle to Pan Africanism? Like, I know there's many names and many leaders out there that kind of get pushed to the side because we're in this patriarchal society here. So many people don't know the women that were intricate in the formation of our organizations, or integral to the progression of our plight together. And I'd just like to ask, like, what is your opinion of the feminine side, or the feminine angle?
Of course, yes, there is. I mean, there are organizations and entities like I don't know if you ever heard of FemWise and GMAC, which is the Gender is My Agenda Congress, all spearheaded by the AU, the African Union. They were born out of this realization that there's a feminist part uh, to Pan-Africanism, and recently there's the she power. So you have a lot more, and then there's a he for she. We even so if the problem wasn't identified, we would not have such groups coming up. So there is that to it. And then, but you see, the good thing though is we in identifying this, conscious effort is being made.
Mm-hmm.
Example is there's the Women Wine and Words Festival that they do in Harare. I don't know if you ever heard, but you've heard of it, you've read about it. But anyway, in this festival, an artist chose to feature women artists from all the African countries. And when I say all the African countries, some of them were, oh yeah, from the African countries, but some live in the Caribbean, some live in America here, some in Europe, but they pick people to paint pictures and kind of a story about their experience as far as being a woman and being a Pan-Africanist is concerned. So, I mean, there's a whole lot out there, and the curator, I'll send you the link later. But then
Okay.
it's so much. It was so wonderful to see the different artwork. So even in a creative world, we're telling this story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just something that we know is there because we find that just addressing it from one angle, which like I said, the AU, for example, now
Mm-hmm.
is not enough, because you find out it get a lot, the focus gets lost in the bureaucracy and all of that. So you have things like, festivals like the Women Wine and Words come up, the on demand at exhibition, talking about women artists, talking about what the ideals and what they have been faced with in the past, and how we looking to progress. So all of that is out there. We know that. So of course it's there. We
I
there's
think it's
a monster there that we're trying to curb, or trying to kick to the curb.
yeah, it's imperative that we get that art out there because I recently read a book. It's a short book called "To Be African," and it just goes through like certain, like if we're talking about our artists or our family relationships, our teachers, our people in business and professional fields, and the section about the art, it was I really enjoyed it because it talked about us that are conscious in our progression and working together to unify, that it's imperative that our art reflects our people and our journey, our story. And I think a lot of people, we kind of forget that our art isn't just for our own therapeutic purposes. Well, it can be therapeutic for everybody when we actually have that those works together. So I think having that women, wine, and words is that's beautiful.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. And it was very all encompassing, because we had 51 African countries, 51 African countries. And they made sure that the artists were people who have traveled, who live in the Caribbean, who have experienced life in America, who have, experienced life in Europe. And so they came with a good, the total package,
mhm,
because even though, like I said earlier, if we went by the AU standards, the AU standard says, oh well, if 23 countries were there, then it was good enough. But no, this Women, Wine and Words group, they said no. The On Demand actually group said no. We want everybody. We want, because it's everybody's business. So we want to make sure not just a fraction, but a whole lot of. So 51 out of the 54, that was a good number. So it was good representation. And like I said earlier, I'll send you the link,
yeah,
so you can see the stories around the different artwork from different parts of the African world, of
I'll definitely be looking
African
forward.
descent.
I'll be looking forward to that. I appreciate that.
Okay, cool.
So we mentioned how you were the president of the Robo Progress Union in America, and also in the African Diaspora Development Institute in New York City. So I'd like to ask you about your organizations and your work and how they also contribute to Pan-Africanism. I think it's beautiful that you're the face of the president of your organization, and just again, like our Pan-African women leading the way.
Well, yes, and like I said, I referenced earlier, it's we actually need to reformat ourselves. When I say that, I mean we're not even accepting ourselves. You'd be surprised, because in my being the president of Urobo Progress Union in the Americas, I've been president now for 3.5 years. It's been an uphill task,
Mm,
because most times people don't mean what they say, You have
mhm,
to say, okay, we want the women to be there. Then when they find the woman there, in which case, in my case, me being there, you find a lot of people they have they become very antagonistic. But
mm,
like I tell all women, all Pan-Africanist women, I tell them that, listen, don't see yourself as a woman and look for other cheap standards to meet. Always try to be above and beyond. Whatever you do, and whatever you do, for example, the culture, I understand it. The language, I speak it fluently. You understand? And then whatever growth I'm looking to achieve, I make sure that it's not a narrow minded approach, but more a broad minded one, and taking everybody into consideration and taking everybody along. So we've done a lot of projects, both here and in Africa. And as far as the Global Progress Union is concerned, then as far as the African Diaspora Development Institute, ADDI, I mean, we have a great mentor, Her Excellency, Dr. Arikana Chihambori Kwao. I'm sure you've watched a lot of videos on her, how she actually talks on issues. It's not, she doesn't talk because she wants to talk, but the issues, you know, and we give it to her. I mean, she's done a lot of projects, like calling out France on the exploitation of the Francophone African countries. Nobody did that all this time. So she's done that, and she's, her tenacity, she's done a whole lot of things. So us, who people who are working with her, and for me being the chair of the steering committee of the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware, this part of the world, she sees it as, well, listen, we are in it together. We have to make sure that we send the message out there undiluted, as to who we are as Africans and what we want for ourselves and how other people must see us.
Yes.
They have
Yeah.
no choice, because we want to make sure they see the way we want them to see it, not the way they choose to see it. So
Right.
she's been great at that. So it's ongoing projects, and both culturally and in the contemporary world. So it's just it's ongoing, and thanks to groups like We Charge Colonialism coming up with programs like this, in you know other groups are coming up with things, and so I see that we're making progress.
Yes.
I
I
don't, I'm all over the place, but just I don't know if I answered your question, but yes, we're doing projects. We're doing things to sensitize and to make sure that Africa really is put. We're given our position, our rightful position.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned how we are to everybody else, because I have watched, I believe, like Dr. Carr in the past, where he's mentioned there's like 6 essential questions that we have to answer, and is, who are Africans to other people? Who are African people to each other? What are our ways of knowing, understanding, and being in the world that we created to navigate our experiences? What are the ways of using science and technology? How do we move and remember particular moments in time, and in any specific time and space, how do we mark that time and space? And I think with what you guys are doing, I like to ask for like a cultural perspective. And we're in this time and space now. Like, how have African women shaped Pan-African ideals? Like, we know that Pan-Africanism is, like, many people get it mixed up and think it's an ideology, but it's really an objective. And I like to just ask, what is, just from that cultural perspective, how have our women
Uh,
basically shaped that? Because like you just now mentioned, many people say things, but then once you're in that position of power, they become a little antagonistic, even though like we've have many stories of how our women have been the leaders essentially many,
yeah,
many
because,
times.
I can give you examples. We have Queen Nziga of Angola.
Mhm.
That was in the 1581 to 1663, I believe. And King Pavita of Congo, and then you know we've had warrior Queen Solitude of Guadalupe. We've had a whole lot of them, and Queen Yala of Senegal, and this was all in the 18, way back in the
Mhm.
ancient times. These people have at different times been in the fight to make sure that um, you know, as Pan African women, that the voices are heard. They're not only seen but heard, and
Yeah.
their concerns addressed. So, and even here we have recent, Rosa Parks. You know, these
Yeah.
are women who, they're black. We have even recently Shirley Chisholm. So it's women have helped. They have contributed immensely. You know, and it's just unfortunate that they're not being recognized. But as time, with groups like We Charge Colonialism, we're coming, being brought to the forefront to discuss and actually, forge a way forward for, for women in Pan-Africanism, so that we're heard, because we're doing a whole lot too, and we need to be recognized for that.
Yes. I like that you mentioned all the queens because I recently been reading and read about Queen Candace in I believe in ancient Ethiopia, around like Upper Egypt, when Alexander, I don't really like to call him the Great myself, 'cause I don't see him as great in a way, but Alexander came through Egypt and everything, or Kemet, and he didn't go too low because Queen Candace had a whole army right there at the line where they were on elephants. Like, who exactly is about to face a
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. And even we have, you've heard the famous artist, Fela Ransom Kuti, right?
yes, yes,
His mother, Fumilayo Kuti, was another one. She had an army that it was a no nonsense one. So we have a lot of queens and, mothers in the past who have done a whole lot to address the issue of Pan Africanism. Of
yes,
how we can, um, we need how we need as individuals also to kind of mentally get ourselves prepared to face the world. You know,
hmm
as long as we're being oppressed, we need to make sure that we're equipped to face the battle.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So as you mentioned, like we've had women in ancient times, we have contemporary women that have demonstrated the Pan-African mindset. I'd like to just ask, are the macro views and micro views of Pan-Africanism sometimes different between men and women, from your perspective? Because I know you mentioned how the antagonism that can be put in place at times, and as we see, we've had many, many, many women in our history, our story, that have helped us to even be able to be in positions that we are today. Have you seen any different views and objectives from the men and the women?
Well, I mean, yes, we totally have a different agenda. I mean, if we didn't have different agendas, why was Her Excellency Ambassador Chihambori Kwao? Why was she fired from the AU if we didn't have different agendas? That clearly is, it's that we just we've identified it, and yes, the progress is that we're going to see how we can, going forward, try to be, a force, come together and really work together. But the micro, like to take you back your first sentence of what the difference in the micro and macro um, um,
The views, I'm sorry.
views. Yes, yes. What the micro and micro views. The micro, we all know what mothers do. We
hmm
all know that
Yeah.
for strong families, the mothers have to be, you know, there to do the nitty gritty. Like they're the ones to check that you're fine. They're the ones to check that you eat good food. They're the ones to check to make sure that all is well. Even
Mhm.
look at the man. The mothers in the home play the major role. You know, and so after doing all of that, why are you suddenly undermining that foundation that you got, from the woman in the woman who is out there looking, making sure that the family is kept together. Now, going to the macro, we have women again, not to belabor the point, we have people like Arikana Chihambari still now. We have Winnie Mandela. We have Miriam Makeba. You know, we
Yeah.
had quite a lot of feisty, you know, women who have been out there on the world stage to, you know, take the bull by the horn and address the issues as they affect the continent, or people of African descent, you
Yes.
know, as they affect all of us. So I think women, yes, we play a great role, and we at this point we don't have the same agenda with the men, but it's there's progress because there's programs like I read in one of the papers, AWO, which is African Women in Leadership Organization, who is being spearheaded by a guy, it's a man, Dr. Elisha Atai, who says he's all for the he for she movement. So they identify some men already are warming up to it, and so I think time will do justice to time will help.
Yes. I love that you mentioned Miriam Makeba and like knowing that she has been coined the term Mama Africa
Yeah,
and everything. Like I think if,
I forgot Angela Davis.
yes, like, I believe if people don't know her story, I believe she truly her story truly embodies I guess our entire plight together as a people. In my personal opinion, to be banned from your own home, not being able to see your own mother. I don't want to say, and this is just paralleling, not even on the same scale because of her personal experience, but how we as a people have kind of been banned from our mother Africa. Like we haven't been able to have our own self determination, dealing with all this imperialism, colonialism, and like you said, the colonialism in the mind. Like that is the biggest aspect of it. Where
Mhm.
it's so hard to even touch back home with our mother Africa, and her story is it's beautiful, but it's something like I, I empathize with it. Uh,
Mhm.
I may not have that same exact experience, but as a people, I'm like, wow, you're so strong. So like your story is inspiring. And her relationship with Kwame Ture in the previous in the past, like formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, is we previously mentioned his book, but their relationship doesn't get put out there on the forefront as much as I believe it should be because it just shows how somebody that was born in Trinidad in the diaspora that also moved to the States and made a big impact, then went to Africa and he met with a beautiful, amazing woman. And also, in my opinion, that's a true power couple. I don't,
Yeah,
so, and how we can all come together, like even though you may be somewhere else in the lands, but we're still all here connected.
very connected. You know,
Yes,
it's true. You know, and that's the thing. You said something really that you know it's true. As in, you know, we're different.
yes,
We must consciously come together.
yes,
Well, because you have the African born in Africa and all they lived all their lives there. You have the African born there, might came to the Western world, you know, and lived here for some time and went back. You have the one born here in America or in Europe or in England, you know, or in the Caribbean, who
mhm,
are there, and they just have a very little understanding of, you know, the African world. You know, but in all of this, if we try to make conscious effort to come together, knowing that we're really all the same, it will be better for us. Which is where, like I said, the reformatting has to take place, and then we can then have a program that we consciously follow, so that
yes,
if you say, for example, know all that you know because you were born in Africa and you grew up in Africa, that's your, you know, you plug in at a level that, you know, where you plug in at your own level. But let a program be format. Let's have something that we follow, so that those who have very little knowledge can be, you know, enriched And so they know, because we're all queens and kings.
Yes.
There's no ifs and buts about it. We are all queens and kings. And so we just need to know what the ingredients that we are lacking, each of us at different, because of our different starting point or different birthplaces, can plug in and get the same message out there.
Okay. So for the final question that we have here for you today, I love your responses so far.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you.
are there any
It's
misconceptions?
helping me too.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Have so far in your experience, are there any misconceptions that people may have about Pan African women?
Oh yes. Oh yes. You know, I find because Pan African women are courageous, they are labeled to be disrespectful, they're
Yes,
labeled to be too aggressive, they're labeled to have negative energy. Have you heard that before?
yes.
Oh, she, I like what she says, but she has negative energy. And I'm like, excuse me, what do you mean by negative energy?
They'll say attitude, like she has an attitude all the time. Or like,
And so it's they and the reason they say all of this is because they still in the past where they think women should be seen and not heard, and that's a deeply misogynistic
right,
point of view. That attitude has to, that's what we need to make sure we squash. And so when, as a Pan-African woman, I tell you, do what you do as long as you know you're doing the right thing and your message is the right message, you know
yeah,
and you know like I mean, that's really what it is. and
mhm,
and like we say that, uh we know that Pan-African is tantamount to socialism, because the roots of of Pan-African is, and so socialism, is
yes,
it's the roots of, and so when they see you as a woman, they see you as, this is a socialist. This is, she's too that, she's um too aggressive. We don't need that. We don't need to hear that. We At this point, what is needed is words of encouragement,
right,
and the way to come up with that is, again, I repeat, the We Charge Colonialism, your group, excellent job you're doing. Make sure you have workshops, seminars, so that we can educate more people, so that they don't see women who are in Pan-Africanism as, as people who are disrespectful, or people who are just not cool to be with, because they
right,
always see something wrong in what's going on, and which is where the message comes in. If you have a good message, something, you say what it is, and go with it. And I believe that would do it for us. So whatever misconception they have about women, and they gradually, it will be purged off,
yeah.
and will be in a friendlier setting.
I like that you mentioned that Pan Africanism is rooted in socialism because I think that many people that fall into the political jargon forget to look at the history, as you mentioned, like all of our ancient women that's been leaders in our society and whatnot. I think people forget that there was already a social democracy in Africa before there even was the European terms socialism or democracy. And when you talk about people that have these stereotypes of the Pan African woman and that is speaking out and speaking up and whatnot, I think that they're misconstruing that for like that's really integrity. That's their integrity showing because they most likely have some knowledge on the topic that most people do not. Because I think that many people don't, as we've mentioned, many people have these misconceptions about Pan-Africanism in general, that
Well,
it'll be even harder to even understand the woman that is a Pan-Africanist as well in this westernized society when we're still working within the realm of this westernized mindset, this colonized mindset. So I believe that's the misconstrued thoughts that people have. Apologies. I'm sorry about that. Sorry
yeah.
about that.
Isn't that why they came with the luta continuar, you know, Vatura Eserta, which
Yeah,
is the struggle continues and victory is certain, because they know that we constantly, the woman is faced with so much opposition, and for me, I think it's an evolutionary process that's, and we're in different stages, but I see that victory is certain.
definitely.
Coming up with groups like your group, we're coming up with the ADDI, African Diaspora um, uh,
Institute. I'm sorry.
Institute. Yes, I mean, and so ADDI, and we're doing a lot to make sure we sensitize on the platform people. I mean, and bring posts of pro and against, and pros and cons of things happening in Africa, and then we make sure we address it properly, so nobody comes to teach us what they think we should learn, but we teach ourselves as we go on.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So,
Yes, ma'am. So that's very important. So in closing, I would like to say I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing your thoughts, your words, your actions that you are out here with your projects and everything. It is so crucial. And I love it because this is an intergenerational thing. Because I know that myself, I'm not in the same generation as you, but I know my generation needs you. Like, I don't think that that's said enough, that we need you.
doing moving forward.
Yes. So I like to ask if you would like to please come back at any time to enlighten and educate us more, because your voice cannot be heard enough.
Absolutely, it will be a great pleasure and honor to. Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, I really appreciate that.
You call, I'll answer.
Yeah,
And
yes,
thank
ma'am.
you so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That will be all for today, and I hope you have a blessed day. And yeah, this is Recharge Colonialism. Thank you, Dr. Bernice.
Keep
And
up the good work.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Always.
Work. So yes, 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 yes. We need you.
We need you.
Thank you.